I'm here with Pam Fitzgerald, who is a trustee. In which school board are you on?
I'm with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, which is a public board in Ottawa. And I don't know if you caught my last name, Fitzgerald, but I went to Catholic schools when I was growing up.
Irish background?
Irish background. And I decided I did not want my children going to Catholic schools, and nor do I think it's appropriate.
Why did you decide that for your children?
Well, personally, I saw the effects that religious teaching had on the classroom when I was young, and I wanted my children to have a much broader education, where they met children from all over the world, where they met children from other religions, and where they really learned. I felt that some of the education I received was rather stultified by some of the non-teachers that were in the classroom back then. Yes.
You often hear that the Catholic school system is just as diverse and inclusive as the public secular system, but your experiences were different.
I don't think that's true. It wasn't back in my day, and I don't think it's true today. If we look at some of the controversy around the health curriculum recently in Ontario, we see that the Catholic bishops weighed in heavily on that to actually kill some of the changes that were being proposed that are frankly in this day and age really necessary for our children to understand something.
My understanding, of course, is that the bishops do have a right over the sort of theological and dogmatic aspects of Catholic education, where the education touches on issues of Catholic theology. They have final authority to make decisions there. Is that basically accurate?
Well, I think it is accurate to some degree, but I also think it's wrong. These are public dollars that are funding the Catholic school system, and frankly, we have a lot of Catholic teachers in our schools, and the board teachers cannot teach in Catholic schools. We have a lot of Catholic senior administrators who work in our school board but continue to send their children to the Catholic public board.
Interesting.
So frankly, I think this is not right to use public taxpayer dollars when there's such a crying need in schools to provide special services for children, broader range of services for children. Having the duplication in two different systems is very expensive, and I frankly would want to see that money going into the classroom to address real needs of real children in the classrooms.
We've heard some rumors that sometimes non-Catholics will actually sort of fake a religiosity they don't have to gain access to those employment opportunities.
Right.
Have you noticed anything like that?
Well, I've read about that, where basically people will, in theory, convert to be able to teach, and that's just ridiculous. In that this day and age, that people have to do that sort of thing.
I want to ask you while you're here. The reason you're here is that there is an international summit right across the street from the rally here.
Yes.
And it's called Whole System Reform, which would lend itself naturally to discussions as far-flung as, well, it should include under its broad mandate, at least a discussion about the whole system reform inherent in possibly removing public funding of Catholic schools, merging those two school boards together. Have you noticed any touching on that?
There's nothing on the agenda about that. It's more, it's talking about standardization and meeting targets more than anything. So I'm quite concerned, because it's almost like this whole system reform is sort of reform of the system, but on our agenda.
Right.
And so some of the more difficult questions, even around questions such as should we have universal testing, such as we have with EPOAO, people are not really posing those questions. So it's sort of, it's almost a bit of a cheering session for the status quo.
Is it at all open to more broad discussion? Like, obviously the speakers have been selected by the ministry.
Right.
But is there open, are there seminars, are there opportunities?
There are opportunities to get up and ask questions, but there is this assumption around the table that all targets and all standards are a good thing. So it is harder to have that broader debate as to what the underpinnings of education should be. And frankly, I think that's where the debate should be. It's not just on the standards and targets, it's what we want to see in terms of values within our public school system.
Excellent. Thank you, Pam. Well, we just concluded a very successful rally. We had tons of media here, a great attendance. I'm here with some of the heavyweights of the One School System Network, Gilles from the Francophone community, as well as the trustee community as well.
Yes,
and
Public Trustee.
From what part of Ontario is that?
Well, we cover from, this is the Centre Sud-Ouest, which is school board number 58. We cover from Trenton area, this side of Trenton to Windsor, and from the Penetang area to North Bay. To Niagara Falls, which is the largest territory in Ontario.
And we talk a lot about sort of the situation with Anglophone Catholic and secular schools. We don't talk as much about the Francophone community, which we should, of course. What are some of these, are there specific issues related to the Francophone schools we should be aware of with respect to Catholic schools?
Yeah, the main issue is that students from the French school, French public school and French Catholic schools, once they complete elementary schools, they're not inclined to go into French secondary schools because the programs offered are far inferior to those of the English majority. For instance, if I'm not mistaken, the curriculum of Ontario calls for 102 programs. The French are lucky to be able to offer 50 or 55. And they're being penalized because they don't have the numbers. Now, we've tried, and I mean with this, the public side, to discuss with the Catholic side to say, let's put our school together. Let's use the same buildings. Let's maintain the Catholic teaching that you require, but at least we can offer a multitude of programs. It worked at one location, which was London, and now the Father Jurashi, the president of the Council of Bishops, came publicly and it basically instructed the Catholic boards, both English and French, to say no sharing of installation.
Wow.
So basically that is a major factor to contribute to assimilation of the Francophones in Ontario.
So you're doing your best, quite nobly, to work with a non-ideal situation to get as many resources used as effectively as possible, and even there you're finding resistance from the Catholic side of things.
Our interest is the success of the students.
Of course.
We're trustees to be in education. The Catholics are there to be in religion, and they're missing their mandate. It's a farce, it's a parody of the responsibility. And the church cannot impose to anyone of any common sense to say, we will negatively affect our youth for the sake of keeping them to give them 1 hour of Catholic instruction. This is where the mistake is. The other big problem is the French community. Those with responsibility towards having activity, community centers, ACFO, and organizations, they cater to the population that's getting older.
Right.
They don't look after the youth, and so the youth see no interest. They don't see a plus value in getting a French education and in being bilingual. So it's a major factor contributing to assimilation.
So it's really great to have you here at this conference, having some representation, although of course never enough from the Francophone communities. Richard here is from a whole bunch of, wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Which hats exactly are you here with?
Well, today I came really as a parent and a taxpayer. That was because my daughters attended French separate schools, primary and secondary, in Eastern Ontario. It was very convenient for us, but it just didn't seem fair that other Francophones who were not able to attend separate schools had to be bussed out of town. Just on a human rights aspect, human rights principle, it's just not just to have one class of citizens with more rights than the others.
Right.
Because really, we all pay the same taxes, and we all carry the same tax burden, yet one religious group has benefits that others don't share. So the Ontario funding system is really an anachronism from the 1800s, and it's time we force our government to bring us into the 21st century. I think this is one of the issues where the public is ahead of the politicians, because teachers, this is very interesting, my friends who are teachers in Roman Catholic primary and secondary schools, they'll tell me privately in my living room, they agree that the system is a farce. It's wasteful, it's discriminatory, but they're afraid to speak out for fear of losing their jobs.
You have here a pamphlet from one of the many civil rights and secularist groups, which proudly declares, maybe you can hold it up to the camera, not carved in stone, which I think is important to realize. These things can be changed.
That's correct. This booklet was written by a retired public high school teacher, Mr. Renton Patterson, from Pembroke years ago, and he outlined the fact, he really debunked a lot of myths that people in Ontario have about our system. I keep hearing, well, it's in the Constitution, so we can't change it, and then people try to change the topic.
Exactly.
But really, it's not written, there's nothing carved into our Constitution that cannot be changed. I mean, think about it for a minute, Justin. The people who wrote our Constitution thought women shouldn't have the right to vote. I mean, they weren't even considered to be persons. So our Constitution is a living document.
Exactly.
Modern concepts of social justice evolve. Freedom evolves, and hopefully in Ontario we will evolve into forming a secular, fair, just schooling system for all people of Ontario.
Thanks, Richard. Again, great to have you here as well. I think the fact that that document has been around for a long time shows that this issue is not going away, that the issue has quite a longevity. Simon Parcher from the Humanist Association of Canada also demonstrates that, because the Humanist Association of Canada has been fighting this issue, among other secularist issues, for quite some time. Is that correct? How far back does this fight go?
Well, the first event that I was involved in was back in 1992, and we sent out a press release to all 400 media outlets in Ontario about this issue, about the public funding of separate schools. So that was back in '92. So it's been going on at least that long. I'm sure longer, yes.
What is your involvement in this rally here today?
Well, I was, as the leader of the HAC, I was one of the initial people that got together to plan the event. I'm president of Humanist Perspectives magazine, and as you'll notice, it's here. We published this rather provocative article, yes, about the public funding of separate schools in Ontario, and I think that got the ball rolling. Our graphics man Richard Young actually wrote the article.
Oh, very
yes, and then of course we were working already with some of the people in your network, the Ontario, the OSSN.
Yeah.
So and then it just mushroomed from there. You became involved. The OSSN got involved. You took a lead role down here in Toronto to help get things organized, and I don't think we could have done it without everyone working together. And I'm really proud of the fact that we all been working together on this initiative, and it was a really good show today. We had, I think, at least 100 people, maybe more.
I think maybe a couple hundred over the course, coming and going. I think the image of on the top of Humanist Perspective is provocative, but the whole idea, as I was saying in my closing remarks, is that we have to provoke, because the ministry and the government in general is really just putting this under the rug, hiding Canada's dirty little secret. And if they would only agree to have a public forum to discuss this issue, let the chips fall where they may, I think they would. I think the public would show them that the most economic and the most just and the most equal solution to our dirty little secret is the removal of government funding to the Catholic school system.
I agree.
ThinkAgain TV is produced by Centre for Inquiry, Canada's premier venue for secular humanists, atheists, skeptics, and free thinkers.